Good morning, student, once again, and we will continue our lecture from where I left. Let me just share you the presentation. Fine. So in the previous lecture, we have studied about what were the purposes of research. Here are a few more purposes of research. So earlier we studied about why do we do research. So generally I discussed about to get a degree and then to face challenges, then to do something creative, to serve society and to gain respectability, respect within the society. There are few more purpose. We will discuss them in detail now. The purpose of the research is to discover answers to questions. Like I discussed in the previous lecture that research is done in order to move from unknown to known. So that is why we try to get answers for certain questions which are not known to us. And today also, what all formulas, what all laws that we are using is just because of someone has already done research on it. They have proved that thing again and again. That's why we are using it as a law. So we need not to prove them again and again. And then finally, research is also done in order to know the truth. Like I would like to share an example with you. There are a lot of theories still regarding Bermuda Triangle. It is said that once if an individual has entered Bermuda Triangle, he has never came back. So it is because, we have not been so much practical enough to jot down the information regarding Bermuda Triangle. So that's why we can only propose a theory, because we don't know the truth behind Bermuda Triangle. Any individual who has went to Bermuda Triangle in order to find out the truth has never returned back. So that is why we can only specify theory. We don't know the real truth behind it. But researches are going on. You never know when you'll get the truth behind Bermuda Triangle. And lastly, then research. I have mentioned various purposes of research, but those are not all the purposes of research. Sometimes there are certain motivational factors that affect an individual to do research. There are many more other factors. Sometimes there are government, directives to do research. Sometimes there are employment conditions that compels you to do research. Then many times it is curiosity of an individual to understand some casual relationship between few variables, or social thinking, or to awake people. Like nowadays there is a lot of research going on corona, to awake people how to protect yourself from corona, because still we are unable to find an antidote regarding corona. So these are other various other factors that motivates you to do research. Now we will discuss about the need and role of business research. What is the role of business research for you as a buddy managers, or for you as a management graduates? So the first is testing new products. Whenever a company launches a new product in the market, it doesn't just bludge it into market, or flows it into market. First, the company does research, and depending upon that research, they try to detect the potentiality of the product, or how much successful a product would be in the market. And then only on the basis of that, they do demand forecasting, and they do produce only that much units, whatever the demand forecasting provides them. That is basically the first importance of research in today's world. Then ensuring adequate distribution. Once when you have known that how much quantities you can sell, then you are going to produce that much quantities only. If you will produce less, then you will lose your market share. And if you will produce more, then due to overproduction, you will again face a loss. Then measuring advertising effectiveness. Now basically here I would like to quote one thing, that you must have learned about three types of elasticities of demand in your previous, you can say, subject of business economics. There are three types of elasticity basically: price elasticity, income elasticity, and cross elasticity. There is one more elasticity that is called as advertising elasticity, which is not mentioned in your syllabus, but it exists within demand forecasting only. So basically, advertising elasticity is the proportion proportionate change in the sales of the product divided by proportionate change in the increase in investment on advertising. So that is done through the help of research. Means, in simple words, I can say, if you are investing like say 100 rupees in the advertising of a product like A, then you have increased it by 3 times, and this very year you have invested 400 rupees, and earlier you have checked that when the advertising price was 100 rupees, then how many units were being sold. Now the price is, advertising price is 400 rupees, so how many products are being sold? If the units sold have also increased fourfold, then you will say there is a direct proportionality in the advertising effectiveness. If it is beyond 100, then it is more than 1, then the elasticity is more than 1, and if it is below 4 times, then it is below average, so it is less than 1. So that is how you do advertising effectiveness. That is how you measure advertising effectiveness, and it is one of the most important tool related to research methodology in business world. Then studying the competitions. Many times you need to study your competitor's product, and that can be done only on the basis of research. For example, there are lots and lots and lots of research on Coca-Cola and Pepsi. They are the two biggest world-class brands fighting for their marketplace in the beverage segment. So there are many things here. I would like to quote an example. Like, many of the times what happens is that you go for blind testing. What you do, in one glass you pour Coca-Cola and in another glass you pour Pepsi, and you only knows which product is in which glass, and then you give it to the any respondent. You ask them to sip from each glass and tell which is better, and most importantly why. So this research is done. This is called as a blind test, and this research is done in order to know the competition prevailing in the market, how our competitor is doing, what is the cost of our competitor, what is the selling price at what they are selling their product, what all offers they are giving in the market. So many times your competitor also tries to imitate your product, means they copy the same what you're trying to do. And in order to know the response of the customer, this is how you can carry on any kind of test. Then what are the characteristics of research, my dear? Research should always be empirical in nature. Means, many of the times when you're not having adequate amount of literature, or when the research is being done for the very first time, then generally the research is based on the experience or the observation of the researcher. Then I've already told you in the definition of research, my dear, it is a systematic process. It has some steps, and those steps are need to be followed in the similar order as they are guided or as they are written. Then controlled. All variables that are affecting the research should be kept constant, and one by one their impact would be measured. And likewise, then you will collect the data. So you should have a controlled environment while doing a research. Means, if you want to control any variable, you should be in a situation to control any of the variables depending upon the requirement of the researcher. Then whenever you are conducting a research, my dear, you should formulate a hypothesis. Without hypothesis, if you're doing a research, then at the later stage you will fall into a problem that you are having the data but you don't know what to deduce from the research and how. Then research should be logical. It should be based on certain procedures and principles. It should not be done in a haywire that you sit on the night, you copy pasted some questionnaire from here there, you just carried out all the scraps, and then you went to the field and then you do a rigorous data analysis for 6 months. You jot down the data, and then you later on come and sit on the desk, and then you don't know what to do. Why? Because you have not followed the valid procedure. First, you should read all the research papers, all the previous research that has been done on that particular topic. Then you derive your questionnaire. Then you deploy your hypothesis. Then you derive your questionnaire, and then you should go to the field. But 90% of the researches are done in wrong order. They just copy paste the questionnaire merely from here and there from various websites. They don't know the logical procedure behind it. They don't know how the questionnaire was formulated. They don't know from how to collect the data. They just draw the questionnaire from AYR and then they went to the field. Then they come back with that data and then they don't know what to do and how to do. So this should not be done. You should follow the logical procedure. Research is cyclic in nature, means it always starts with a problem, and then every time there is some scope of improvement in every research. You cannot say that my research is 100% secured. No research is 100% secured. So research always starts with a problem, then you try to solve that problem, and every time there is a scope for improvement. So again, it leaves a question behind it that is called as the scope for improvement. Then research utilizes basically any procedures of gathering data, whether it is historical, descriptive, experimental, or case study. Means it, you should have some proven data or you should collect your own data. Means whenever you're conducting a research, either you should have a primary data or you should have a secondary data. If you're not having a data, my dear, that research is of no use for society. And critical, basically research requires precise judgment. You cannot be, you should be 100% sure. You cannot be approximately sure. You have to be 100% sure. Then only your research is called as a good research. Then it should be conducted in a manner that there should be no biasness in any of the method that you have adopted, in any of the software that you have used, in any of the tests that you have applied. It should be not a biased research. It should be an unbiased research. Then you should not replicate your data, my dear. Means, for example, I know that if you will study more, you will get good marks. But even if your research is not proving it, you try to rectify your research rather than just fudging the data and trying to bring the correct, response. At the last is employs quantitative or statistical methods. So generally good researches are basically quantitative research where you are applying certain kind of test, where you are going to the field, gathering primary data, because primary data is much more unbiased data and it has been gathered by you. So you knows what type of the nature of data I have gathered and on what date. So generally you should employ any kind of research methodological technique that we will study in unit 4 and 5. Now, what are the qualities of a good researcher, my dear? A good researcher should be research oriented, means he should have that capability, he should have that enthusiasm, that hunger for doing a research. He should be efficient enough, means there is no time for, doing a good research. Every time, whenever you are getting a scope to improve your research, you should go for it. Scientific manner means you should practice certain procedures, certain guidelines that are already been formulated to do research. Research should be always effective. It should not be, done for without a social purpose. Then a researcher should be active. You should be resourceful, means if you are not getting, means like many of the times I've seen many of the people say I'm not having SPSS. Oh, I don't know how to run SPSS. My university never provides me SPSS. They don't give me that much amount of fund that I can buy SPSS or I can install. My dear, you need to be efficient enough to develop resources for yourself. If no one is giving you, if your university is not providing, ask from your friends. Go to IIT, give them the data, they will give you the analysis. So you should be that much resourceful enough to gather softwares, to jot down data, to develop questionnaire. Many of the times people complain me that my researcher doesn't knows anything. Then my dear, go to internet. There are lots and lots and lots of videos on internet that teaches you how to do research. Then more or less you should be creative. You should be honest. Many of the times whenever your data is not giving you the desired result or the desired values, I've seen people fudging with those values. They delete the old value which is coming from the software and they jot down the acceptable ranges, which is not good, my dear. At one or the certain instance you can do that, but at later stage you might fall into trouble. Then researchers should be economical. Even if your university is providing grants to you, my dear, try to minimize the cost of gathering data. If you are getting something with the help of other individual and you need not to pay for it, go for it. And then lastly, you should be religious, means believe on God and one day you will be able to get what you're trying to deduce. Then there are certain types of research. Now there are four heads under which we divide research. Research are always of two type. So basically, whenever you are dividing the research on the basis of objectives, objective means what you are trying to find out. Then there are two types of research: descriptive and analytical. And whenever you are dividing research on the basis of application, application means which type of testing you are applying. So it is applied or fundamental. Sometimes it is on the basis of data that you have got or the information that you have generated. So whenever you are having some quantities with you do a quantitative research. And when you're not having quantities, you're only working on the results of the past researcher. You are not taking into account the values, you are only taking into account the result that they have generated. So it is generally a qualitative research. And then on the basis of process means which type of methodology you are using in order to get your result. Then it is of two types, that is conceptual and empirical. And we will discuss this in our next lecture deeply. Thank you very much.